morning, everyone. We are here live at AI Showbiz Summit 4.0, and a recent introduction. I'm beyond thrilled that we have David W. SIME, producer, tech director of Oncor Realty Ltd, here in the house with us this morning to kick off some of our morning discussions. So, David, while we've recently met, it is no secret that you are one of the leading experts in the world on what you're about to discuss. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and it is all yours, David. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Molly, and good morning, everybody, or afternoon or evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm honoured to be here. My background in virtual and augmented reality only really started about 3 years ago. I've been in online media for the last 15 years, and I've been in person-to-person communication and marketing for the last 20 years. But having gone into the digital world, decade and a half ago, and then progressed into the video world as people's attention spans got shorter and shorter, and we had to kind of feed as much information to people as possible. We went in the direction of immersive, and immersive media was things like augmented reality and obviously virtual reality, which has been around for a lot longer, and has only really, despite having kicked off in the 70s, really kind of gained ground recently. And that's for a number of different reasons. Reduction in cost of equipment, increases in bandwidth and communication abilities, increases in processing power, reduction in form factor, what we call form factor, which is the things that we wear or use have got smaller so that people can carry them around with them. And actually one of the major things has been mobile phone technology. However, what's really made the change recently is that connections have got very much faster than they used to be over the last little while, and that's one of the three major disruptors which has given us a fertile ground for augmented and virtual reality to really take hold. Not just talking about 5G, because that does allow for a very high degree of wireless connectivity even without using broadband, but even wireless broadband and internet in homes has given us the ability to stream large amounts of information to our devices very, very quickly and very, very cheaply. It means that we're not connected or wired into things in order to make those connections. The next thing that's important is that we are now and about to move into what I'm going to be talking about isn't so much where we are now, but where we're about to go over the next 10 years. Okay, so we're now moving away in augmented reality from app-based to browser-based. Now, I'll just clarify, because some people struggle with the definition between augmented and virtual reality. Virtual reality tends to be when you're wearing a headset usually, and you are completely immersed in a digital environment. You can't see the real world around you. You can only see that digital environment, which is great. Augmented reality, you can see the world around you. It's just adding to it. It's just augmenting it with digital content, which can be done through your mobile phone, as I'm sure many of you have experienced already. But we're now moving in the direction of wearables. Well, I'll come to that in a minute. The kind of augmented reality that we had on people's mobile phones required them to download an app directly onto their device, usually for each different purpose. Now, that is a non-starter. We've seen that in the West with QR codes and so forth. It didn't really work. It didn't really take off here. In the same way as in the East, everybody had usually WeChat on their phone, so it meant that they could use QR codes straight away. They had the connectivity there, and it meant that everybody started using them, and they're a major, major thing in China and Japan in a way that they never really took off in the same way in America and the UK. And other bits of Europe. So that lack of the requirement to download something new onto your phone is a really important thing. And we call this browser-based, web-based AR. And it means that you can point your phone or your device at any image or be in any given location, and automatically the augmented experience, the digital content will appear. Which is great because it means that anybody can access it, and it removes a major friction point. It means that you're not gumming up your phone or your device with all sorts of apps that you're never going to use once. The final thing, and this is what's really going to make the difference, is wearable devices, which is just like it sounds. With virtual reality, instead of wearing these huge, heavy things that you had to connect to a majorly powerful gaming PC, which would cost you thousands of pounds, and the headset would cost you thousands of pounds, and you could only operate within a very limited area where you'd set up like little scanners to see where you were standing in the room. Now we've got something called inside-out tracking. That previous one was outside-in tracking. The sensors are outside of it. We've got inside-out tracking, which means that your headset knows where it is. So no need for trackers. It means that you can have a much wider area to play with. And these things are untethered. That means that they're not connected by a wire or a cable to your computer. So you've got this freedom of movement. This also dramatically reduces the cost because you don't need to connect it to a big expensive PC. You buy the headset and you're done. An example of this might be an Oculus Go or an Oculus Quest. There's also some other ones coming out with other names. I don't want to be too Oculus heavy in this one, but these are the ones that have really been pushing it forward and bringing down the price. Now, the kind of average prices of these things are between $200 and $400 euros or pounds, depending on where you are. That's not a lot. When you compare it to the average price for a mobile phone worldwide, isn't that far off that average. So we know that there could be mass uptake there. Now, with augmented reality, the barrier was if you wanted to see that additional digital content overlaid onto the real world, you had to do it through your mobile phone. And that in itself was a barrier in a lot of places. You don't want to have to hold up your phone and hold it at arm's length to see something which might be a long experience or performance or something like that. Wearables, again, comes to the fore. Many of you might have heard of the Magic Leap or the HoloLens. These are quite expensive devices. They have a bit of a business focus. Even Magic Leap has a business focus these days. A lot of money has been invested on them, but they're quite bulky. They're very good at what they do, particularly HoloLens, for business purposes, for looking at things in building sites, seeing where the wiring is meant to be, and all this kind of stuff. Great for business, not brilliant for consumers, because do you really want to be walking down the street wearing a thing which is about that size and is connected to PC? It's not going to happen. However, there are new, very light wearable headsets coming out. Apple is inevitably going to release one quite soon. There's one coming out of Beijing called Nreal, which looks like a pair of Ray-Ban glasses. Not quite like a pair of Ray-Ban glasses, but not far off it. And it just plugs into your phone. So your phone does all the processing power, and the headset itself is very, very light and very, very easy to use, and you wouldn't feel like a complete idiot wearing it. And this is one of the first generation ones. These are only going to get smaller and lighter. Now, with the advent of fast connectivity through 5G, appless downloads, so that you can basically access it without having to download anything, and something that you can wear wherever you go, this is going to make some major, major changes to the way that we do things. Because suddenly, anywhere we go, we'll be able to access digital information. We won't have to switch on a phone or look down at it or have this binary, I am in the digital world or I am out of the digital world experience. There will be a constant layering of information, for better or for worse, depending on how you feel about it. Now, the three areas that I want to go over, because my time is limited here, are the education, the effects this is going to have on education, the effect this is going to have in commerce and marketing, which is my background. I also have a background in education as a lecturer, and the effect in business and the workplace. I've run a business, and I'm sure many of you do. So you're all going to see these changes. So I'll go through these quite quickly. First of all, education. Now, the history of mass education was adopted, we're in about the Victorian era in England and different eras in other places, but what we developed was what's something called a pedagogical system, where you have this pedagogical means kind of teaching by father, so that you've got this one authority figure on the stage, sage on the stage, and you've got a large number of people who are being taught. And it's very much a kind of a mass production line, a factory line, where you get schools that bring in large cohorts of students, separate them into age groups, separate the times of day with bells, almost like a factory whistle, and then work them into different structures of quality, and then work them up through different structures of age before splitting them out for different purposes at different stages at the end of it, which is really the only way that we can do mass education up until now. But this is different now. First of all, no need to travel to a centralized location. You can be educated wherever you want, because you put on your headset or your wearable and you can be wherever you want. That means that you can not only take part in education from anywhere, you can be assessed from anywhere. So it means that the teacher can be in Australia while the students are in Singapore, Shanghai, America, the United Kingdom, wherever. It also means that students can learn more individually, because with the addition of artificial intelligence, with the addition of structured virtual learning, you don't need to have a teacher teaching a large number of people and trying to keep them all at the same speed at the same time. Each person can learn at their own pace, which means that each person can learn better because they're not being rushed, and those who are very far ahead are not being held back. That's got to be a good thing. You can learn more practically. Rather than learning from a book or from even a video or from YouTube, you can actually get immersed in what you're doing and learn it by doing, right? My mother was a teacher, and she had this favorite phrase that she always drummed into me: I hear, I forget; I see, I remember; I do, I understand. And that served me well as a lecturer, because only through demonstration, repetition, and actual action do you get the opportunity to really learn things, mind and body. Finally, we get to learn things which are more practical. For instance, think of the lessons that you could learn. Dance, you could learn how to dance properly. Martial arts, you could learn that properly. Engineering, surgery. I've sat with surgeons who have previously had to learn from importing cadavers from other countries, dead bodies, and working on these dead bodies in order to work out where the heart is, where the lungs are, and so forth. Well, these are limited. Not so many people can work on them, therefore, they're hard to get, and also they're not alive. With a virtual body, the heart can be beating, the blood can be pumping. You can actually be getting a sense of learning on a living person without any risk of accidentally injuring somebody through inexperience. By the time you're working on a real person, you've done it, you know what's going to happen in real life. Next, you can learn more safely. There are a lot of things which are hazardous and risky, not only to the patient, as in this example, but hazardous and risky to you, because you might be learning to work with chemicals, electricity, volatile substances, heavy equipment. All of these things could potentially harm you if you get them wrong. You don't want to be working with something which could blow you and everybody else up around you until you really know what you're doing. And again, these can be taught in virtual reality. An example that I always like to think of is if you were training somebody to escape in the event of a disaster or a fire from somewhere that was very dangerous and was full of volatile fumes or whatever, would you want them to read a plaque saying, here is your exit route, or watch a video showing them where their exit route is, or learn by doing? Wake them up in their bunk in their or wherever their workstation is. The klaxons are going, there's smoke around them, and they've got to get out, and they've got to get out in a certain amount of time to a certain fire assembly point, and then things might change. They might manage to do this within that certain time, being assessed remotely by somebody, but they might then have to try it again once they've succeeded, where something is blown up and got in their way, and they've got to find another route there. Because if that then really happened to them, if there was then a disaster, they would be equipped with the memory of how they survived. Now, there's a school of thought that says that this is how we learn, and this is how we survive in these situations. The whole life flashing before your eyes thing is your brain looking for previous experiences of when you went through a similar thing and survived. This provides you with that safely. Next, commercial and marketing. Okay, now obviously this is my background, it's commerce and marketing. The thing about this is, if you're in a shop, you have only what we call surrogate indicators, a stand-in experience for what the quality of the product is. Let's say you're in an electrical store. You can see that there's a printer there. You can see that there's information on how fast it is or how good the vibrancy of the ink is, but you don't know for sure. You're just looking at a bunch of images and a static object. Well, imagine, using augmented reality, that object can come to life. That object can actually start printing, show you its speed, show you its vibrancy. You don't even need to visit the store, as we've discovered. We were asked for exactly this for shop shelves, to cut down on demonstration models in retail and to increase the quality of the experience for the user. But now we've been told, well, obviously with COVID, a lot of people are not going into retail stores. So what we do instead is we have exactly the same augmented reality experience, but you experience it from home, on your own desk, at home. See how the printer looks. See how a piece of furniture looks in your own home. IKEA have been doing this for a while. And see how things fit in to your home. You can just experience them, try different objects in situ, and then choose whether to purchase them. Now, this also means that different people, for advertising, let's say, not just in terms of commerce and shopping, Different people can see different advertising messages or different other kinds of signage, directions, wherever they go that are most relevant to them. And therefore, different people see that different content depending on who they are. I always like to go with who, what, when, where, why, and how. These are always the things I use as variables to assess what's relevant to different people. Who is that person? What are they interested in? Where is their location at that given point? What time of day? Is this on a commuter zone, or is this a midday kind of on the way to get lunch? And where are they? Are they near their workplace? Are they on holiday? And therefore, the messages that they see are relevant to them. That means instead of putting up a billboard, which is only going to be relevant to a small number of people, everybody's seeing something different. Similarly, if an individual sees an advert and they decide that they actually want to buy the product, the digital divide is removed. They don't have to remember the advertising. They don't have to remember what they saw and go and find it in the shop or go online later on and remember what they saw. They can buy it right then and there. Click, they're there. Now that means that the advertiser can track who made that click, what they made the click on, where they were when they did it, where the advertising was, when they did it, what time of day, what time of week, month, year, and where each of the adverts were working, so that they can then refine their budgets just in the same way that we do with digital advertising, but in the real world. Finally, I'll just go through this very quickly because I'm running out of time and I want to leave some time for Q&A. Business and the workplace. Now, I try to work with larger organizations who have a lot to gain or save so that we can develop these products together. And it's high value development, but then you can pass them on to organizations or individuals who might have less deep pockets, but equally enough as much to gain, like medicine, healthcare, charity, that kind of thing. So what we started with was large oil and gas and renewable organizations, renewable energy organizations, who don't want to be sending people to hazardous offshore environments like oil platforms where they have to fly them to a central country and then fly them offshore into the oil platform and make sure that they have offshore training and insurance, and it's taking them away from their homes, their family, their work. There's a lot of waste involved and nobody really enjoys that kind of business travel. So we came up with a way of doing this virtually. And so we can now do live streaming of 3D virtual environments, which mean that people from numerous different countries can just go and do a live site visit and be guided without ever leaving their office. Reduction in carbon, which appeals to the renewable energy sector. Reduction in cost and risk, which appeals to the oil and gas sector. So these are really helpful to these organizations. And finally, in terms of planning, we can use virtual reality and augmented reality to show what a new building, a new structure, a new wind farm is going to look like in situ. People can go there and see what this would look like from their house, which is really good for stakeholder engagement, but also for planning. BIM, building information management, and SIME, city information management, is all about modeling things from scratch before they've been built. Well, all of this can be done, designed, integrated, viewed by many stakeholders from many disciplines and backgrounds in virtual reality. Okay, I've gone over a little bit. I think I've got about 3 minutes left. So I'm going to stop talking, and if anybody has any questions for me, then feel free to ask now.
David, that was absolutely incredible. Fabulous job. Thank you. And I understand you're in Scotland. So people know that we have a lot of United States viewers this morning. We're very curious if what it's like in Scotland doing the kind of business that you're doing, since this is a global conference and we're meeting people from other cultures, and how I know you work with a lot of people all over the world, how it may be different or similar.
Well, we are under a very, very serious lockdown here. I know that lockdowns have changed from country to country, but I am confined to home. I have never been busier. My industry is incredibly busy at the moment. And the other thing that is causing a difference to my life is that the people who are contacting me are from all around the world. Today alone, I've had conference calls with Australia, India, and there was one with Finland, and another one with Norway. So we're doing a lot of work with a lot of different parts of the world. It's really removed the barriers of distance. The United Kingdom is a small island off the coast of the northwestern coast of Europe. It's a bit separated, but it's joining us together like never before. And as I say, in my field, I've never been busier.
Wow, that's exciting. And we're lucky that you've taken time out to share your wonderful thoughts and insights with us. Where do you see this all going? I mean, you've been at the cutting edge of emerging technology now for a while. What are you betting on for the future?
Wearables, really, honestly, what I was describing there, the ubiquity and the constancy, the
Yeah.
constant nature of our connection into the digital world. This might scare a lot of people, but a lot of innovations scare people. Everything from the loom to the written word has encountered a bit of resistance, but it's going to happen, and we are going to find ourselves continuously, not just when we pick up one of these, but continuously to a certain level connected to each other and to the digital world around us. And that is going to change us as a species. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, whether we need to plan ahead for it or not, but it is going to happen. So it makes sense to plan for it. And that is what I think wearables is going to be the thing. Things that look like this, or even less invasive than that, that connect us with each other and with the world around us.
I'm going to dive into the technical aspects a little bit. Without without giving any proprietary information out, what do you program in? We've got very technical people. What do you develop mostly in? What languages?
Well, in terms of 3D engines, which are the engines which create and operate the models and the user experience that we work with in both augmented and virtual reality, there's two main players. One of them is Unity, the other one is Unreal. Unity is an absolute juggernaut of an organization right now. It's moving into all sorts of fields, and it's nice and lightweight. It works very well on a mobile phone. It's likely to work very well on lower powered devices like the wearables that I was talking about. Unreal created Fortnite. So they're doing quite well right now, and they're using the vast revenues that they've generated from that in order to move heavily into the business world as well, in order to catch up with their main opponent, which is great because it's really pushing forward the industry for all of us. They're not at the moment not quite so good for lightness and agility for smaller devices, but in terms of realism, and I say at the moment because it's constantly changing, could be different tomorrow. They have a higher level of realism. I like that for the real immersive, can't tell the difference between this and reality kind of stuff. I would use it for. In terms of languages, underpinning languages, there's a lot, and I use different ones, or we use different ones for different purposes. So I would be here all day if I were to go through the languages.
How do you? This is a follow-up question. You obviously have the skill and gene for learning all these languages because many of them didn't exist recently. How do you go about that process of staying up to date and knowing all these new languages as they roll out?
Let me let you into a secret, seeing as it's just you and me. I don't. I find people who do. I find people who have specialisms, who are really passionate and immersed in what they do, and I get them to work together. And sometimes that's programmers, sometimes it's artists, sometimes it's sculptors, sometimes it's user interface specialists.
Wow.
I've even got a comic book artist and historian, and previously war photographer working on one of our projects. So it's a question of bringing together people who have devoted their lives to a specialism and who want to work together. My skill isn't in programming, my skill isn't in being technical. I'm just lucky enough to be in a field where I can bring people together who are suitable, create teams to create outputs, and have them work together to become more than some of their considerable parts.
And are those people all over the world? I mean, had you already been working pretty much virtually with them, these teams that you bring together that are specialists?
It certainly made it a lot easier. I was already working with people in different countries, yes, but now instead of having to phone them up or send emails to them at different times of the day, we go into virtual environments, we work together, we see each other, we talk with each other, we get to know each other, so that when we do meet physically, and it's rare because I don't really like wasting carbon in terms of global travel, but when we do meet, we already know each other, we're already friends, we already have an understanding of each other, which bypasses some of the restrictions of technical language and also local geographical language, which can be a problem when you're dealing with the older media of conference calling or emails.
Wow. And what virtual environments do you use? Teams, or what virtual environments are you meeting them in?
Lots. I'm actually created a live spreadsheet which allows all of them. There are
Oh,
so
yeah.
many.
Tell everyone about that. This is fascinating, David. Tell everyone about your spreadsheet.
Well, your question was a good one, because what we realized was that there's going to be, just like there's different 3D engines for different purposes, there's different strengths and weaknesses to all of these different virtual meeting environments. For instance, Altspace, which is Microsoft's one, can actually manage a lot of people.
Yes.
However, it requires a bit of downloading, it requires a bit of specialism to get into. Once you're into it, it's great. So it's good for small to medium conferences, and it's getting there in terms of large numbers of people. Another one, Mozilla Hubs, doesn't require any download. You can just access it. You give somebody a link, you're in there, but it's limited by the power of the device that it's being run on, because it's, you know, download an app, and that does the grunt work beforehand. So it has its strengths and weaknesses. Glue is another one that we're currently looking into, which is really flexible. You can bring 3D models and you can work on them together, which is great for engineering groups and teams, because we can create very detailed environments, industrial environments for them in Unreal. But they can then get together and bring in components and work on these together, discuss them, design them before they ever come into the physical world, reducing the construction process, the design process by many, many months and hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's well worth it for them. You couldn't do this in some of these other channels. So I created this spreadsheet to keep up with all of these different channels and all of the different developments, which are constant. And I invited people who have developed these, but also independents like myself, to analyze them and say what they're strong and weak on, and just keep it constantly up to date. And so if anybody is interested in this and wants to have access to this and wants to contribute to it, then feel free to drop me or Molly a message, and I'll definitely invite you.
How do we reach you, David?
My company the company that I have that's to do with augmented virtual reality is called Oncor Reality, Oncor.
Can you put it in the chat? Can you put your email in the chat? That would be great.
I will.
I really appreciate it.
It's just David at that address, but I'll put it in the chat now. I can find it. Just as well, I'm not a technical person.
Yeah, David, I want to thank you so much for your talk today. It was magnificent. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I have stopped the recording. Robin, get Tim Draper's slide ready. Tim is supposedly going to be beaming in right at 9:30. If not, I have on speed dial his. I have on speed dial her number. So, yeah. Yeah. Thank you, David. That was just magnificent. And
thanks for having me.
I am interested in that sheet because I would like to know which ways to convene people when we develop things going forward. Thank you so much.